And we're live. Yeah, I don't know what happened. Everything fell apart on my end. I think it was actually my fault.
We were having a good time.
Yeah. Oh, darn it. So let me see if Kyle should have got the connection. So sad, man. Everybody was, there was like 30 people on there with us too.
Yeah, bummer. Hey, what kind of computer are you rocking, Robert?
It's a MacBook Pro.
MacBook Pro? How old?
Yeah. 2015.
Okay, that's strong enough. Here I was thinking you were streaming off of a potato.
Yeah, no, I need to upgrade for sure.
Yeah, I just did that.
Let's see.
All right, I'm not seeing the right people on the stream.
You should.
Okay.
There we go. I think Trey's coming.
Okay. Let's see here. He was having some problems with logging.
Yeah, me and him ended up back on the same call. Yeah, there he is.
There we go. Sweet. Sorry about that, guys. So that was totally my fault. I was trying to play some videos on the other side. I think my computer couldn't handle it. Man down. So I lost that first portion. So now there's going to be 2. But that's fine. So anyways, back to where we were. We were talking about wings over winter, and then we talked about somebody crashing, and then I think I clicked on the do not click button.
Yeah, got to stay off that do not click button.
Yeah. I just had to test it. I just wanted to see what it would do.
Nice. So speaking of wings over winter and travel and such, Trey, do you have any travel paramotor plans in your future?
You know, for 2 years now, I've wanted to go down to Wings Over Winter, and it's a 16-hour drive for me. So it has to be, I don't have a van, so it has to be worth it for me. And the last 2 years, the weather has just been on the cusp of like too windy. So I just didn't go. And so 2018, you know, I don't have any travel plans right yet, but love to do a couple things. I want a couple things on my bucket list, like SIV course. Love to get that done this year. I also want to try and get certified for tandem flights. Would love to be able to share my experience with people, like real time. Like this is what it's like to fly and actually go take them. So want to get some of that going too. I thought about going down the instructor road, sort of like the Fly Guy Alberta has done, and that may be in the future, but right now I just think SIV and getting some kind of tandem going. And of course, I do all kinds of local fly-ins. There's a couple, like there's one down in Virginia, and there's one down in Maryland, which is fairly close to me, 4 hours and an hour and a half. So I love to go to fly-ins.
You ever done a beach flying?
So we used to have a beach house down in New Jersey, and we no longer have the house, but some of the best flying I've done has been in Avalon, New Jersey. Just awesome flying. The wind on the shore is so different than it is inland. It's just crazy.
Yeah. It's all day smooth. It's
so smooth. Yeah.
You know, I brought the family down to the beach in Texas. In Texas beaches, you can just drive right out there on the sand and set up your little camp. And some other Louisiana friends joined me down there. And this was before we actually met up with the Texas guys. And we just went there on our own. And man, you fly for 20 minutes and then land and swim, eat, drink, and then go fly again, just in your swimming trunks.
Yeah.
I loved it, man. I like to, you know, the flying kind of gets monotonous. I mean, there's only just like the one thing to do, just up and down the beach, but it's still fun, man. And you could do it all day, like
right.
It's pretty neat.
I agree.
I'm ready to get another beach trip in soon.
I agree.
Hey, so you were talking about tandems there, Trey, and down there in Miami, Jose, he makes all of his students go on a tandem flight with him, but he has to do it on a trike as a light sport aircraft. But what he does is he'll launch, and then he'll put the brake toggles into the student's hands, and he'll have the throttle, you know, just and then kind of guide the student through just that phase of training.
Sure. Yeah, I had a tandem flight before I took my first flight, and I loved it. I felt not as in control until he put the brakes in my hand as well. Yeah, you get to experience the flight and not, you know, without the training, you know, if you're going to go up with somebody. So that's a good thing. And I think it's just another way to spread word about the sport and, you know, how cool it can be.
What's the process like to get your tandem for paramotoring?
So there's definitely a lot of things that you have to, I don't know the specifics, but it's, you know, you have to have like 30 different launches. You have to do spot landings. There's a whole checklist of things that you have to run through. I don't know what those are right here, but, you know, they're all very doable. I'm already able to spot land pretty much, and my launches aren't a problem anymore.
So the maybe Phil can answer with the what does it take? Phil, can you take tandems?
Well, actually, I'm a tandem administrator, so I give out the ratings, but I'm embarrassed to say I haven't looked at that for a while, so I can't remember what the requirements are. I'm looking them up right now, actually.
Nice. When was the last time you took a tandem?
I actually did a paragliding tandem last week or something like that. It was a 17-year-old son of and his father is also learning to paramotor. He's a paramotor student, and his father's a paramotor student. So I took the son up, and we were up for about an hour and a half flying at horse, and it was fantastic. We got to about 8,000 feet. Very nice.
Wow.
Yeah, and
that's free flight.
Yeah, free flight. And free flight's a great way to go on a tandem preparing for powered paraglider flying, because it's quiet. You know, there's a comm system in the powered paraglider, but the nice thing about flying with the paraglider is you can just talk to each other and hang out for as long as you want. The fact that there's less weight, the glider handles and feels a little bit more like a solo experience. Once you go paramotoring with the tandem flying with the paramotor and a couple of people, it starts to get a little bit unwieldy, a little bit like a boat or a bus. Is that what you experienced, Trey?
Yeah. So, you know, taking off tandem in a paramotor is, you know, difficult because you're running right next to each other and you're like kicking each other as you're running. But yeah, it sort of feels like this boaty Cadillac just kind of riding around. It's a really big wing, and yeah.
Yeah, I'm still looking up that tandem stuff.
I got to use the tandem rig. A friend of mine, I took my son and my cousin up for a ride this weekend after Thanksgiving. And it is kind of a strange feeling, you know, two people hooked up, but I liked it. And I plan on getting the rating, I guess you call it, the instructor rating and the exemption to do it, you know, without any sort of crooked eyes looking my way. It's bound to happen, but, you know, we're just North Louisiana outlaws. We'll skim over the details. But I just hadn't had I've actually had an opportunity to do the instructor course, but I opted out so I could fly with all my friends that weekend. And, you know, that's priorities, man. Priorities.
Yeah. For sure. Priorities.
So what do you fly with? Tell us something about, like, for example, I feel like this is a part of my body. I have a Leatherman, and tell me something about maybe something that you bring with you, or some things that you maybe have in the secret pockets or whatever that you bring with you that you will not fly without.
It's very minimalistic. So, you know, early on, I used to carry a pocket knife in my pocket all the time, just like your Leatherman. And one time I ended up crashing. This is very early on. And my knife fell out of my pocket. And ever since then, I don't fly with it because it just kind of clips on. So I don't fly with a knife. Some things that I do fly with. I always have my phone. I always have a Vario. And I use on my phone, I use Fly Sky High for the most part, the app.
I like that app.
Yep, it's good. Unfortunately, it's only for iOS right now, but I do love it. It's a really good app, and it's good for quick at a glance look at whatever you're trying to look at: speed, altitude, rate of climb, descent, etc. I also I have pockets in my harness that I can put gloves in. I have a selfie stick that is underneath my seat that I almost rarely use anymore. I used to use it a lot more when I first got it. I can just put my GoPro on and put it in front of me. Really, that's about it. I don't try to fly with a lot. I don't, because I'm only going for smaller flights and I'm not like free flighting, I don't necessarily have to bring water or snacks because I can just land, get that stuff, and take right back off. So those are some of the differences between paragliding and paramotoring, right? So I don't have to worry about your last episode with the P bag, right? The TP, whatever you call it. I don't have to worry about one of those because I can again land, go to the bathroom, and then take back off. So very minimalistic.
I got to start thinking about getting the old P tube going.
Well,
Our season is kicking up.
Plenty of people in Miami have admitted to getting out of the seat, unzipping, and then letting it fly. Yeah.
Literally letting it fly.
wow.
You need good pressure, and you got to have the right equipment.
Yeah, Chris Santa Croce said you want to make sure you have plenty of altitude
Bill.
so you don't snag it on anything. So.
Well, some of us have the problem of it getting caught in the prop.
Yeah.
What'd you say, Phil? Phil said you got to have the right equipment.
Yeah, you got to have the right equipment and good pressure.
So funny.
And
Nice.
aiming down at a 45-degree angle is key, okay? So that it kind of misses the prop and misses everything, misses your feet.
I don't know. Something about my mom always telling me never to pee into the wind. I don't know.
So funny.
Nice.
So
Speaking
seriously.
go ahead. I'm sorry.
Phil, what do I have to get? What is the thing called? It's like a P tube or the PP something or other.
Watch this. Hold on.
No, he's gonna go get us some medical stuff.
He's gonna go get us.
He's gonna go show you a Foley catheter. I bet it's a whole kit that helps you insert a tube into your bladder.
No, thank you.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm in the drugstore, so you got the P tubes.
No.
Well, this is the wrong kind. I grabbed the wrong one. And then little condom catheter. You just put it on. Is this too dirty to show on the internet?
No, that's medical equipment.
Medical.
Yeah, of course.
medical.
You put this on and then you stick this to it, and
It's for
boom,
science.
And,
For
and
those
you really
of
want to
you
put a couple of them together and run them all the way down to your foot so that everything leaves at the very lowest point.
That's right. That's smart.
The first time that I went shopping for one of those condom catheters, I walked up to the counter at the pharmacy, and there was an elderly lady there. And I wasn't prepared for what she was about to ask me when I said, "Do you have any condom catheters?" And of course, she said, "What size?"
Oh boy.
Yeah. Mall pharmacy stocks 28s, 31s, and 35 millimeters.
You start looking around.
Those are millimeters.
I don't think that we need to be getting different sizes with the invention of Velcro. Do you?
Rubber bands.
Well, you don't want to cut off the circulation.
Yeah, you want it the right
so
size. I
funny.
promise.
Oh
You
my
want to keep
god.
things trim because those things are sticky. They stick.
Oh, that is so funny.
They do.
So really, Phil and I did a little XC from Little Black one day, and it was what, maybe 30 minutes total from launch till where we, kind of fumbled our way to. But I was thinking that whole time, like, oh, great. I never thought about the P part of it. So our season's about to ratchet up here pretty soon. Spring is close, and
Yeah.
I've been seriously. Oh, okay. Thanks. Extra large. So-
Phil I guess you've been in the sport how many years, Phil?
Oh,
I've been flying for over 40 years.
Okay, so you remember I talked to some older pilots. They said back in the day when you were doing cross country, the deal was you would just get real dehydrated before the flight so that you wouldn't have to pee, going like on these record setting missions and stuff. And I believe that was kind of like a thing that happened back in the day when people started going on really long flights.
There are
That was
some
a big
people who
issue,
don't
and so
drink,
they would
but
start. Then they
Yeah.
realized pretty quick that being like terribly dehydrated was like the worst place to be and making good decisions and flying.
yes.
So that didn't last very long, but that was like a real thing back in the day. So I was told. They may have just been pulling my chain too, but these are some guys
People
that have been in the
still do
sport,
that.
20, 30 years.
People still do that. They resist drinking, and because they don't want to deal with the P tube, and then eventually, if they're serious enough, they go to the P tube, and then they're happy they did.
Yeah.
I wish I
Yeah.
had one right now.
The low-tech version is when I was deployed, a lot of guys, they would take a tactical piss in a corner. They would have their weapons at the ready and just do it right in a corner. But some guys, if they're laying on their bellies, they just pee themselves. But
Yeah.
most paraglider pilots don't want to ruin their equipment like that.
Yeah,
So they'd have their weapons ready, and they'd also be holding their guns.
For sale. For
Knew that
sale.
was
Only
coming.
peed in twice.
Yeah. This harness has only been peed in twice.
Do you have to disclose that on eBay?
No.
It's horrible. So, Trey, you have talked about your next adventure. And so I want you to talk about that. What is your next plan? You keep on hinting to the Icarus. Tell us what you're thinking.
Yeah, so I've been following the Icarus for a couple years, and the first time I heard about it, I'm like, hold on, this is what I do already. I'm already a paramotoring, right? So, and I followed it, and it was awesome. I want to say 2 years ago, but it might have been 3 years ago. And then this year with Tucker in the race, he only lives about an hour away from me. I've never met the guy, but at least I know him. And I've never met Trey and some of the other guys that are regulars at the Icarus, but it's on my bucket list for sure. I can't think of really anything else cooler. Going out and just braving the adventures. And, that's why I really want to do something smaller like the Icarus X, like they just did down at Wings Over Winter, something smaller to start off with. But the Icarus is definitely on my bucket list and something I'm not going to say I'm going to do it this year, but it's on my bucket list for sure. Looks very cool.
Have you had a chance to look at configuring your current equipment for like an underseat reserve and a heavy duffel bag to strap on?
So I've thought about how I would, especially last year watching the race, I thought about how I would gather all my gear and just sort of watching how Tucker went through his thought process and what he brought. And I keep mentioning his name because he's the one that really documented it so well. Yeah, I've thought about it, and I don't know that my current situation or my current setup would handle. I just have to get some carabiners, a bag. I actually don't fly with a reserve right now, and that would change. For something like the Icarus, I would definitely have a reserve. So. Yeah, that would definitely be a lot of work to get that ready.
I quite often fly with as much gear as I can pile on just to kind of stay in shape. I will fill my tank up, put water bottles and water bladders and batteries, and just load down because one, I lost weight and I switched motors and I still had these wings. So being loaded up on them made them feel more like they felt when I was loaded to the max on them. But yeah, and sometimes it's just a minimal thing too. But throwing a bunch of gear on, like I did a high altitude flight where I had oxygen tanks and Arctic gear and all this stuff, and it kind of makes you clumsy.
For
it's
sure.
one of those things, but it's good practice just every now and then, just messing around. I'm always tweaking the gear and whatnot. But like you said, a couple of carabiners, a duffel bag. I did a huge flag deployment. They gave me this big, like 20-foot flag. Yeah. And so this thing was huge in my lap, and I had a 10-pound dumbbell to hold the thing down. And that was in there too. So, it's good practice anyway. As long as you can keep it from banging your legs on the run. That's the thing. If it's too low, your knees will hit it. It'll kind of trip you a little bit.
Right.
So you want to mount it up kind of high, and there's a sweet spot to it. But yeah, just go practice it a little bit, and you'll know pretty quick what works and what doesn't.
For sure. So this last year, I definitely wanted to do something like 100-mile cross-country trip. And, not necessarily a race, but just getting out with a bunch of guys and getting, launching from one spot and landing in another. So, something like that would prep me for something like the Icarus, and I can get ready for, gear and all that.
That Michael Holliday was coming up with in Kansas. He was talking about the flight across, like a group cross country across the state of Kansas. And, not a race, but a group cross country, like a whole deal, like a rolling fly-in. He was gonna he got an 18-wheeler to carry everybody's gear back to the starting point, and like a bus, so that when everybody gets to where they're going, everybody just rides back on the beer bus together.
I'm in. Count me in.
Yeah, that sounds fun. I told him I would love to do that.
Yeah.
And,
so I want to put a quick plug in. Phil Russman has put together and kind of worked through all the kinks of gear and finding what works and what doesn't. And so check out his website. It's lighttouchfilms.com. And he's got all kinds of good stuff on here, reading material. He's going to point you in the right direction for what to read, material, and gear. There's tons and tons of gear you can see here. He's got wings and your paramotors, what size you should be looking for, just all kinds of stuff. Go search around there. Phil didn't ask me to put this up, but he's been so gracious to help me to learn and just always been a resource for me to reach out from the very beginning. He was the very first guy I ever talked to. And so he knows what he's talking about. So you can skip some of the nonsense, and he'll answer his phone too.
I think one of these shows we should interview you and how you got started in. Oh, there they are.
Hey, check this out, guys. These are some of the best DVDs on paramotoring you'll ever see right here. Risk and Reward, a great intro on paramotoring, and Bound for Glory, where Phil actually goes on a trip to Australia and rides the Morning Glories. These DVDs produced by Phil Russman.
Nice.
Did you actually catch one, Phil?
What was that?
One of the Morning Glory rolling clouds. You caught one of those?
Well, you'll have to watch the video to find that out.
No spoiling.
I saw a documentary about a hang glider that was trying. They were arrow towing him up there, and he was trying to catch it with an arrow tow. And that's the only thing I'd ever seen about that. And I don't think he was actually successful, at least that I remember.
He was.
Was he?
Yeah.
Okay, maybe so then.
And there's a documentary about that, and they had to try a bunch of times.
Yeah, I remember him struggling to do it right.
Yeah. There were they had a tough year. Sometimes there are no clouds.
Yeah.
And they had to wait around for quite a while. In our case, actually, we were really lucky. There were a lot of clouds.
Okay. Nice. That's they say it's only good on one side of those clouds. The backside is like a terrible garbage mess of turbulence, right?
That's exactly right. You don't want to be you don't want to be there. That is for sure.
Awesome. Well, that's intriguing. I'm gonna have to check that out.
Yeah, Light Touch Films. So yeah, we're almost out of time. If we'll take some questions from the chat, if you guys have anything that you want to ask, or if you want to add to the show, I do encourage you. If you, we don't charge for this show, obviously, but this information is incredibly valuable. Some of the things that we talk about here might save your life. If you want to support the show financially, you can do that. There's a Patreon account that we've set up for the show. I encourage you to go on there and support it. And like I said in the last show, you know, there'll come a time where I'll feel like, well, I'd just rather go fly than have the talk show. But if there's money involved, then I'll do the show.
Especially after March when time changes again.
Yeah, exactly. When spring is here and it's like,
right,
I've got to fly.
We all have that itch.
Postpone the show
every day after work. Every day
Yeah.
I'll be out there for 20, 30 minutes, man. That's the good time of the year.
Yep.
I guess Tori was on today, Phil. That for a little while. I'm
still considering San Diego for the like a summer trip, man.
Come on, man.
I know you gave me the invite. I took it seriously.
Yeah, man. I don't joke around.
Fits in the back of a jet plane, man.
See, that's all you need. You put that, and you can come stay
pick
with
me
us
up at the airport. Yeah. I won't even have to bring a tent.
Yeah, you got my cell. You call me and let me know. And
we have a question from the chat, guys. One for Trey. Did you ever take off again from the place you crashed at?
Yes.
Oh, good question.
Yeah, so the place that I crashed from is behind a volunteer fire department, about a half a mile from my house, and I've taken off from there probably half a dozen times since then. I don't use it because it is a small area, and I just have other options that are just better, right? So
I've got a question for you, Trey. Have you ever given free flight any consideration?
Free flight's on my list. Absolutely. It's one of the things that I want to do. You know, I would say 2 times in paragliding, I've actually caught some thermals. I went from about 400 feet up to about 1,200 feet at idle. And it was strictly because I had talked to a very veteran pilot on the ground right before I went up, and he said, "Hey, I'm sure there's some thermals out there. Just feel for them and kind of do a quick loop around." And sure enough, I actually saw some birds doing it. I went over, interrupted their fun, got in the thermal, and rode it right up, and it was pretty amazing. Just just the quiet. You're at idle and you're still going up. It was pretty cool, and so. Free flight is something I definitely want to get into. And while we're all on this call, like I kind of wanted to pose a question back to all you guys that do the free flight. How different, and especially you, Kyle, since you do both, how easy is it to get into to just paragliding from my perspective, having only done paramotoring?
Well, I started after I paramotored for several months before I picked it up. So you got a great handle on your glide. You know how the glider handles. Wing handling it's a lot different when you hook into a harness, because you got I guess with the fresh breeze you've got a high hang point, so everything is a lot lower. You're hooked in at your hips. Weight shift is amazing. The feedback from the wing is just nothing else like it. And you rode a thermal up, but when you do it with the free flight harness, you get all these little feelings through the wing that are transmitted straight into you. With the motor vibrating on your back, it really numbs a lot of it out. And after you do free flight and then go back to the motor and motor thermal, you start to notice things that you never would have felt beforehand. But
right.
The sports, even though they're different, there's a lot of crossover and there's a lot of stuff that is unique to each one. The free flight harness is a lot more comfortable. I mean, there's no vibration. You're kicked back more. It's just like you're in a hammock chair. It's just 7 hours in one, and you're not even sweating it. It's that's my record, by the way. 7 hours free flying, and all day long.
That's pretty good.
7 hours in the
7
air?
hours. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Where was that?
That was in Buffalo Mountain in Tallahena, Oklahoma.
Oh my word.
It was just a beautiful day, man. I would go high, it got cold, I would go low. I top landed a couple times and I never put the wing down, just relaunched immediately. And I was just playing, man. It was just like a playground. It was great.
That's awesome.
But being a motor pilot for so many years, you're going to have a lot of skills that translate. Your kiting skills really got to be on par if you're doing mountain flying anyway. Of course, I was still pretty green, but when I started, handling the wing on the mountain, it was a lot different. And, you think you got a handle on it, but, Phil could probably tell you more about it than I could with his 40 years. But
this last year, Russman had 140 miles? Bill
wow.
Belcourt, those guys.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Wow.
Good run, man. Yeah. And I plan on smashing some XC this coming season. That's on my plans, and getting some long flights in. I've had the opportunity, but time actually. I had family on the mountain, and I didn't want to go out for 100-miler and then delay the family 9 hours on getting home. And so there's some things that you got to take into consideration other than just the flying.
Right.
And
but at least with the family there, you have a retrieve vehicle.
True, but the wind was going the wrong way from home. So, if I'd been going toward home, I'd have just said go, and I'll meet you there. But
oh, that's so funny.
It was pretty good. But yeah, free flight, it really opened your eyes to what's going on with the sky and the winds and the thermals. You'll get a lot more mental understanding of what's happening with the air doing free flight.
Yeah,
because turbulence becomes something else, where at first it's bumps. Now you're thinking, why are the bumps and which way is the air moving and where do I need to be?
right.
And, all these things start to come into play. So it's just something to challenge yourself with, and it really will make you a better pilot. And there's a way to do it safely. I mean, it's I guess a lot of people think it's way more dangerous, than paramotoring, but it just depends on how you do it and what you pick. And the weather is probably the biggest thing that makes it either dangerous or not. So,
Yep.
Yeah, but you've already got a huge understanding on it. You shouldn't have any trouble doing a little transition course and doing some free flight. It's a beautiful thing, man. I would recommend it.
Can't wait.
Trey, there is a question from Perspective. How has PPG changed your life, Trey?
It's
Great
beyond
question.
words. Just beyond words. I didn't used to fly. Now I fly. And everything I do pretty much every day revolves around when's the next time I'm going to fly. I'm always looking at the weather. I think about bringing my paramotor on family vacations now because, hey, I could find an hour or two in the day to go for that flight.
Yeah. I did it in Miami. I only flew in the morning because the family needed me in the afternoon, but it was worth it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, 30 minutes, you got a flight,
Yeah.
It's like going for a jog. I mean, hey, family, I'll be back in half an hour. It's,
Right.
love it. Love it.
Unless you're Phil Russman, then it's 4 hours.
Yeah.
Every time. By the way, Perspective has a great testimony, and we need to have him on the show. He's also one of the Patreon supporters. He's the first Patreon supporter, and at this point, he is the one Patreon supporter. So special shout out to him, and really appreciate him. But he has a great story, and so go check out his YouTube channel. He's in the chat. You can see that. And I'm trying to convince him to come on with us, and we'll try to get him on a camera and a microphone. It's a great story.
Yeah.
So I have done a lot of transitions in both directions, from powered to unpowered and unpowered to powered. And I tell all my powered paragliding students when they get started, I say, welcome to the second to the last sport you'll ever do, because the last one is paragliding.
Yeah.
It's true. I thought I would only fly motors, and then like 6 months in, I'm like, hey, I want to do some paragliding. And he's like, with that wing? Okay, let's try and figure this out.
I
Yeah,
remember
that's
that.
another concern of mine is whether or not I have to get all new equipment, right? Like harness, obviously you need a new one, but I don't know if I obviously need a different wing. So
It depends on the wing, because I got to do a bunch of free flight with my Mac Paracharger made specifically for motoring, but where I was having the problem was that other pilots were always flying over me. I got the skills down, but my glider was always running a little bit faster than everybody else's. I had to ride the brakes a little bit to slow it down, and
got it.
it just really depends on the equipment you have. But I mean, if you want a better paragliding experience, maybe you want to wait to choose your wing until and maybe take a loaner or try out your wings first, because you don't really know how much you're going to want to invest in a wing. You know,
but I know. I already know.
Bill, let me know.
Yeah,
right.
I do this all the time. I mean, the Revo 2 size 26. You can paraglide with that safely, but you're going to find that it doesn't handle the way that you're going to want.
It's not as
your
responsive.
Paraglider. Yeah, it's not going to be as responsive. It's not going to be as efficient. And you weigh how much right now? 190?
Like 190.
Yeah, so you're on a 26-meter wing at 190. That's not gonna translate. You're gonna want a bit of a bigger wing.
Yeah. The gear, you can use it, and it will make you a better pilot if you use a brick motor wing to learn to free flight. If you can make it free fly, then when you transition to like some proper gear, you'll be banging it. It'll be great. And I dealt with that this past season. I got in between wings. I sold my free flight glider because I was way underloaded on it, and I was ready to step up.
That was your Delta 2?
It was a Buzz Z5.
Oh,
and
okay.
I had this buzz, and all of a sudden I was way light on it. And I'd done wrung out the wing, not physically. The wing was in great shape, but I really wasn't getting any more out of it. So I wanted to step up anyway. And so I sold it. And then I was waiting on this Delta 3 to come out. And I was actually test flying a bunch of gliders, but I wound up in a couple spots where there were some good days to fly. And all I had was my Hadron. It was the biggest motor wing that I had. So I would take it to the mountain, and I banged off a couple of cross countries with it. And then one day it was real light on the ridge. Everybody was just ridge soaring. There were maybe 5 or 6 pilots out there at Buffalo. And I launched the same time as everybody else. And we were right there together. And man, they were going up, and I was just raiding down, and I had to bail. And I was, I couldn't keep up with them because my wing efficiency was not as good as the guys who had the free flight gear proper. And I decided then, like, I've got to go get a wing. I don't care.
So typically speaking, free flight wings are a little bit larger.
Oh,
it varies.
Not necessarily. There's a whole range. As the aspect ratio increases, the wings get smaller in both powered and unpowered. So, but typically in paragliding, we fly at a lighter wing loading because we want to stay up. In powered paragliding, we fly at a heavier wing loading because efficiency is less important, solidity is more important, as well as speed and handling. So we always fly, even if we're flying a traditional paraglider for powered paragliding, we often fly above the certified weight range.
Okay.
But in paragliding, you're definitely going to want to fly within the certified weight range of whatever you're doing.
Got it.
Martin in the Martin Motorworks in the chat, he said, is it true that the ideal wing loading is about 8 to 9 pounds per meter? I'm not sure if I asked that question right. Does that make sense?
It depends on the specific wing. Some of them like to be loaded a little more, just like Phil was saying with the aspect ratio. As you increase the aspect ratio, the efficiency goes up tremendously. So you can take less wing and it would lift more weight, more efficiently then if you get a lesser aspect ratio, kind of gets a little fat from front to back, then you lose a little efficiency. So a bigger wing is going to come into play there. Also conditions. If you're in real hard, punchy mountain conditions, you might want a little smaller wing just to keep it, like you said, more solid. And so there's a lot of variables to that question, but typically whatever the rated, whatever brand and model of glider that you pick, you want to be somewhere between the middle to the top of the weight range when you're free flying. And that's a good rule of thumb, basically. And it's going to be different between each model. It's kind of a specific thing.
Cool.
Phil just put a link here.
Yeah, I put it in the chat.
Oh, okay, perfect. You were faster than me. Perfect. Yeah, so again, check out the website, paraglidingtalk.com. Check out also lighttouchfilms.com. You can find all kinds of good gear. And like I said earlier, Phil's already kind of worked out all the kinks and the nonsense, so you don't have to waste your time finding garbage. And if you have questions about anything that has to do with paragliding, I invite you to come to the show, come check out what we're up to each week, Thursday nights, 6 p.m. It was a pleasure to have you on, Trey. Go check out these guys' channels. Subscribe if you're not already. Kyle O, check out Max Para, and check out PPGFlyr. And I'll put those links in the description of both videos, since I don't know how to use the computer. And we'll if we don't have any other questions, we'll call it a wrap, and really appreciate you guys all coming on and really enjoy this.
Sorry I was late.
Yeah, so Robert, I have to say thank you for starting this whole paragliding talk, because, you know, getting people talking about the sport and sharing information, you know, is one thing when you go to fly-ins, but to be able to do it like we're doing right now, I think is so beneficial to the sport just in general. And it's just great job getting that done.
Oh yeah. Anything for the sport, man.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. All right. Well, everybody else, really appreciate your comments coming on, and enjoy your night, and I will see you guys in the air.
All right.
Excellent. Thanks, guys.
Bye, guys. Take care.
All right. Good night,
Take
guys.
care.
All right. So I hit the do not touch this button.